To understand the scale of the disaster, we must first look at the height of the glory. In 1200 BC, the world was not a collection of primitive tribes. It was a sophisticated high-speed machine. Imagine the harbor of Ugarit. Ships from the Aegean are docking, heavy with olive oil and fine pottery. They are met by caravans from the east carrying lapis lazuli from the mountains of modern-day Afghanistan. This was the first international age. The kings of Egypt, Cyprus, and Babylon called each other brother. They didn't just trade goods, they traded doctors, architects, and secrets. But the heart of this entire civilization was bronze. And bronze was a logistical nightmare. Copper was plentiful in Cyprus, but tin was a rare strategic mineral found thousands of miles away in the lands we now call Britain and Afghanistan. If a single mountain pass in the east was blocked, the pharaoh's army couldn't manufacture a single spearhead. This was a world of just-in-time supply chains. Every empire was a specialist. Egypt was the breadbasket, Cyprus was the mine, and the Hittites were the blacksmiths. They were so successful that they forgot how to be independent. They had built a global palace, but the foundations were made of sand. As the climate began to shift, a subtle cooling in the north, a drying of the rains in the south, the gears of this great machine began to grind. The elite were so focused on their ritual gold and their massive monuments that they failed to see the butterfly effect beginning to ripple across the trade routes. A drought in one corner of the world didn't just mean a bad harvest, it meant the collapse of an entire economic species. Then the silence of the Mediterranean was broken. It started as a rumor, tales of islands that were restless. Then came the smoke. These were the Sea Peoples. They weren't a single army with a single flag. They were a chaotic, unstoppable wave of the displaced. But what made them so deadly wasn't just their numbers. It was their technology. For centuries, the Chariot had ruled the battlefield. It was the super weapon of the Bronze Age, an expensive, high-tech platform that only the richest kings could afford. But the Sea Peoples brought something new, the Naue II sword. This wasn't a fragile stabbing needle meant for the hands of a nobleman. It was a heavy, full-tang slashing blade cast from a single piece of bronze. It was a weapon designed for the common man to kill an elite soldier. This was a military revolution. While the Egyptian and Hittite chariots struggled to turn in the rocky terrain of the coast, the Sea People swarmed them like ants. They fought with a desperate, suicidal ferocity because they weren't fighting for gold. They were fighting for a place to live. Look closely at the relief carvings in the temple of Medinet Habu. You see the Sea Peoples arriving not just with swords, but with ox carts and families. This was a total migration. They didn't want to rule the cities. They wanted to replace them. In the ruins of the palace of Ugarit, we found a final desperate letter baked into a clay tablet. It was a cry for help from a king who realized his navy was gone and his borders were wide open. The letter was never sent. The city was burned before the clay could even cool. One by one, the lights of the great empires were extinguished. Hattusa, the mighty capital of the Hittites, didn't just fall. It was systematically dismantled and set ablaze. The great age of kings was being torn down by the very people it had ignored. For centuries, we blamed the fall of these empires on simple human greed and war. But modern science has uncovered a darker truth. The Earth itself turned against its people. Archaeobotanists have spent decades drilling into the sediment of the Sea of Galilee and the dust of the Levant. And what they found was a climate heart attack. Between 1250 and 1100 BC, the rainfall patterns of the Mediterranean didn't just fluctuate, they collapsed. We call this the 150-year drought. Imagine the Tigris, the Euphrates, and the Nile, the lifebloods of the world, shrinking into muddy streams. In the ruins of the Hittite capital, we found the remains of grain silos that had been desperately reinforced, not against thieves, but against the weather. The grain inside was carbon dated to the exact moment of the collapse, and it shows signs of extreme heat stress. But the drought was only the first blow. Geologists have identified a phenomenon called an earthquake storm. During this 50-year window, the tectonic plates under Greece and Anatolia shifted violently, unleashing a sequence of massive tremors that leveled cities faster than any army could. This is the forensic replay. A world already starving, its trade routes severed, its infrastructure shattered by the earth, and its people forced into a migration of total despair. This wasn't a choice. It was a biological necessity. The Sea Peoples weren't just invaders. They were the first climate refugees of the recorded world, fleeing a planet that had stopped providing life as the last city burned. A great silence fell over the Mediterranean. In Greece, the linear B writing system, the very language of the palaces, simply vanished. For 400 years, no one in Greece wrote a single word. This is the black hole of history. The monumental masonry, the gold-leafed frescoes, and the intricate bureaucracy of the Bronze Age were forgotten so completely that when the Greeks of the Iron Age looked upon the ruins of Mycenae, they believed the walls were built by cyclopes, giants of myth, because they could not imagine that mere humans had once been so powerful. But here is the most important lesson of the 1,000-year cycle. The Bronze Age had to die so the modern world could be born. Bronze was the metal of kings, expensive, rare, and controlled by the elite. But from the ashes of the collapse came iron. Iron was common. It was the metal of the people. Because the great empires fell, the small independent cultures like the Phoenicians and the Israelites could finally emerge from the shadows of the pharaohs. The Phoenicians gave us the alphabet. The Greeks eventually gave us democracy and philosophy. We are now living in our own high-tech Bronze Age, a world of global trade, delicate supply chains, and shifting climates. The question we must ask ourselves as we look at the burnt layers of 1177 BC is not just how did they fall, but are we making the same mistakes? The Sea Peoples were a mirror, showing the empires their own fragility. As the screen fades to black on the ruins of the ancient world, remember, civilization is not a constant. It is a fragile agreement with the earth, and that agreement can be revoked at any time.